Episode 118, Wayno and Travis Hartman. I am B Money, the producer. That over there is Weekend Trav. Weekend Trav, fresh off the heels of Easter weekend, but we are back and we're talking Gervonta Tank Davis taking on Ryan Garcia coming here April 22nd. That's a Showtime pay-per-view or DAZN pay-per-view. I know on Showtime, Weekend Trav, hefty price tag, $84.99. Let's preview this matchup. I know it's coming in basically a week and a half from when this episode drops, but let's talk Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, this deserves to be talked about 2 weeks in advance because this is a blockbuster fight because these guys are both young and undefeated. Tank Davis is 28 years old. I believe Ryan Garcia is 22. They're both undefeated. And I don't, if I know this correctly, this isn't for a world title, by the way, because this is at a catch weight as well. This is a 136 catch weight. So there's no world title on the line here, as neither guy owns a world title anyway. Because Tank doesn't own a world title at 135. He owns an America's title, but not a world title. But dude, this is funny though. This is what age we're in right now, B Money, is there's no title on the line. Both these guys are undefeated. Neither guy's a world champion, but this is a blockbuster pay-per-view fight that actually deserves the recognition, but it's because guys like Ryan Garcia is like a social media hit. The guy's got like, I think 15 plus million just on Instagram and probably 20 plus million, all of his platforms all together. This kid really, really learned how to promote himself via social media, which is good for him because one, he can fight too. We watched him live when he fought Luke Campbell. Yeah. And so I don't know, man. This is a great fight, B Money. I think this is a fight me and you both didn't think was going to happen because there's a lot of back and forth. We were like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to get excited just to get let down. And now it's finally happening. Well, in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we still have a week and a half weekend, Trav. So let's say this does go off without a hitch. I'm calling it now. This could potentially be, and it's only April. This potentially could be the 2023 fight of the year.
Hey man, there's some big shoes to live up to, but I think you're right. This could possibly be one of those because this is a 50-50 fight, honestly. And this is the closest to a 50-50 fight that we've talked about for a hot minute. But I think it really is. I think this is a 50-50 fight, meaning either guy could win, depending on which guy shows up. But I think this is a huge fight. And I think that 135 to 140-pound division is so incredibly hot right now because you got guys like Shakir Stevenson, Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Lomachenko, all of those guys. And if I left somebody out, it's my bad. But all of those guys who we talked about in 2021 that we were like, this division is really hot. And they all kind of spread out a little bit because some of them moved up to 140. Some of them stayed at 35. And now Shakir Stevenson moved up to 35. So that he just made that division even more packed. So it's a blockbuster fight.
This has got to be a title eliminator. This has got to be guy who wins is the next step in line to fight for belts. This is what it's have to be. We've talked about this matchup for so long, Weekend Trav, and the fact that we're almost here coming to fruition. Not that I'm a big fan of either of those guys, but I'm getting excited. As a sports fan, as a boxing fan, I'm looking forward to this quite a bit because these are the kind of fights and matchups that don't come around very often. And like you said, with the weight class that is so jam-packed with talent, these are two of the rising studs out of this group, and it's going to be very entertaining to watch them fight it, especially that last week lead up, all the social media chirping and all the tweeting and all the interview process. Yeah. It's very interesting. It's starting to heat up a little bit. I almost feel like both guys are kind of giving each other a little bit of subtle respect based on the power that they both can have. But here's the thing. Tank Davis needs to be careful. Ryan Garcia is extremely fast, extremely explosive, and that left hand of his is heavy. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. He has a very heavy left hand.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think that this is why this is a great fight because Ryan Garcia is much taller. I think he's 5'9", 5'10". I think Tank is 5'6". So if Ryan Garcia can use his height, use his reach, use his power, use his speed, all of those tools, he could beat Tank Davis. However, if Gervonta Tank Davis, he's super fast, super quick, and very explosive and hits extremely hard. You've seen some of his brutal knockouts too. So if Tank can get to Ryan Garcia and touch him on that chin, we do know that Ryan Garcia can go down because we were there live when he went down from a headshot from a lefty, which was Luke Campbell, and Gervonta Davis is also a lefty. So that's why I'm reserving my opinion on who's going to win until maybe the week of the fight. But Either guy can win this fight based on exactly what I just broke down there, because Ryan Garcia has the reach, has the jab, has the quickness, has the amateur pedigree, so he can box and move. Gervonta Davis has the amateur pedigree, doesn't have the reach, but has the speed, has the power, has the intelligence, also has a little bit of the wisdom too, because he's 28 years old as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, oh my gosh,
And
B Money,
and
this
and
is a
used
crazy good fight.
and used to have Floyd Mayweather in his corner too, so that also helps. But here's the thing, Weekend Trav, I think, and we'll talk next week more on our predictions for this fight. But the later this fight gets, the deeper this fight gets. I would imagine it's going to favor a Ryan Garcia. But you're absolutely correct, Ryan Garcia, and it's widely known, widely publicized from even in his youth days. There's videos floating around out there of him training as a young kid. He drops his right so many times, and that will be exposed. If that's exposed to a Tank Davis, then a grenade's going to go off on that side of his face, and it's going to be night Ryan Garcia. So it's going to be a very, very interesting matchup weekend, Trav.
Yep. I don't think Tank Davis can win this fight if it goes 12 rounds.
No, I don't think so either, but we'll see. You never know. We would never have thought that Ryan Garcia would take down Luke Campbell when we went to watch that fight there in Dallas a
Not the
couple of
way he
years back.
did.
Holy moly. So Weekend Trap, April 22nd. This is coming up here. Pay-per-view, either on Showtime or DAZN. I know on Showtime it's $84.99. So pull out your checkbook, folks, if you still carry a checkbook, or just bill it straight to the man, straight to the credit card company. Weekend Trap, anything else further we want to talk about with this fight, or do we want to move that to next week on episode 119 as we are in the final stages approaching this big time fight?
No, just one add-in. They're doing an all access 24/7. They go behind the scenes of these fighters. And I believe there's 2 episodes out on Showtime's YouTube channel. I do highly recommend you guys watch those. I'm not watching it because it will influence my choice. And I don't like when I do that, because it does get you emotional. But I'm telling everybody else, watch it, because it'll get you to tune into this fight even more, because they sell it. They're extremely smart and they will sell it good. But so it's called All Access on Showtime, and it's on their YouTube. It's on their obviously Showtime platform. But check that out, because this is worth it.
So next week, we'll talk a little bit more deeper into the fight, our predictions of the fight. We'll talk the Vegas odds at that point, because those will have tightened up a bit leading into April 22nd. Weekend Trav, since we've been gone for a couple of weeks, we took some time off. We had, Easter. Look at, I got my chocolate Easter egg right here, Weekend Trav.
Yeah, I love it.
We also had, and if you pay attention to our social media accounts, you and I were at MegaCon Orlando, the comic and sci-fi and nerd convention. We were storming around there on that Friday. So we've had a lot of action and activity going on the past couple of weeks. So we're finally back here at 118.
That was my very first ever MegaCon. And by the way, not my last.
No. Next week, we're already geared up. It's in February. We can try clear out your calendar. But what we want to do is talk about some things that we missed while we were gone. And we're going to kind of go backwards in order, because this past weekend, there's a lot of action going on. And really, let's lead right into it, Weekend Trav. Are you ready for this? Because this is the money shot of the week. And Weekend Trav, I don't want to be sour grapes. I don't want to be salt in the wound. But this week's money shot of the week goes to Brian Mendoza over your boy, Sebastian Fundora.
Listen, he is my boy, meaning that in 2021, I put him out there as a prospect to watch.
Oh yeah.
Because, and I pointed out, he did have a lot of holes, but he's 6'6", 154. I said he was going to give a lot of people problems, and he has, because he upset Erickson Lubin, who was expected to do a lot more than he did. He stopped Erickson Lubin, but he does have a lot of holes for sure. But oh my gosh, like, this Brian Mendoza, good for him, because you know what? I'm pretty sure Brian Mendoza is co-promoted by Warriors Boxing, who is partners with BoxLab, who's a local promoter here in town that we go to. So that's a great win for Brian Mendoza. He's got a couple upset victories now under his belt. This one was a big one. And man, I've seen Fundora go down, but usually he gets back up. But this Mendoza really, really planted on him. To be fair, too, Fundora was winning every single round on 2 of the judges' scorecard, and only lost 1 round on the other judges' scorecard going into the 7th round. So he was winning that fight. But you know what? In boxing, Doesn't matter. You have to fight that way for 12 rounds, because if you do not, these guys will knock you out, and you have to be on guard your entire fight. And that's why doesn't matter how big of a lead you are, because I would equivalent that 6-0, 6 rounds to 0 lead to a 30-point lead in NBA, to a 21-point lead in the NFL. In the NFL and NBA, you can essentially stall, let the clock run out, and you can win being up that much. In boxing, doesn't matter. You can't stall. You can't get out of that. You got to finish 12 rounds.
Remember back a long, long time ago when we were growing up, MTV were doing like these crazy like Jock Jam sports or whatever. And they had the basketball league where they also had like different hoops at different heights. And if you would hit the basket at like 20 feet, it'd be worth more points and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like that. We can trap. If basketball had that now, it's the comparison to this fight, because Fundora was definitely up. I wouldn't say he was necessarily dominating, but man, he was winning. I mean, kudos to Mendoza, because they were fighting in a phone booth the whole time and just really laying into each other. But he caught him nice and clean. Not once, but twice. That's what sent his butt to the canvas, his little toothpick legs down to the canvas.
That was a great shot. It was it was a great multiple shots.
If anything, that's a good learning experience. It doesn't derail this kid, but he goes back to the drawing board now. But that was this week's money shot of the week, and that was Brian Mendoza taking down Sebastian Fundora. What else did we miss weekend, Trav?
Oh my goodness. We went live to the BoxLab fights on April 1st. We got to see Giovanni Estella run his record to 11-0 with a very impressive win in the co-main event. He looked very good. He looked snappy against a savvy veteran savvy veteran with a winning record actually as well. I think he was like 30-20. Like that's 50 pro fights, I believe is what his record was. So it was pretty impressive to see Giovanni do that. And I've said from the beginning that Giovanni has a amateur pedigree. He knows how to fight, even though he doesn't have all the knockouts that people would want to see, that the fans want to see. I've said it from a long time that I think Giovanni has the style and the ability to compete with the really good guys down the road.
And the brain.
Yes. And that's why you're seeing that he's beating these guys, and he's beating these savvy veterans because of his amateur pedigree, because of his fighting style, and because he's very intelligent in the ring. And then our good friend, and also was on in this corner, Adrian Pinheiro, got upset and got knocked out in the first round. Just a little setback for a big comeback, hopefully, with Adrian, but Adrian is okay. We are glad to still go to support the guy. We're glad to support BoxLab because they did put on another good show. Like, it was very entertaining. Like, It wasn't one of their big time blockbuster shows they normally did promote, but guess what? It turned out to be pretty exciting.
And it was sold out crowd.
Yeah. And they did good.
It was a very, very fun show to go to. Obviously, we wanted the outcome to come out different on that main event, and sometimes that happens. But overall, it was a fun evening, a great show. So kudos to those guys in the Orlando Boxing Group for putting on that event. Weekend Trav. What else did we miss in our absence?
I mean, you don't want to talk about it, but also Anthony Joshua fought over in England on April 1st and fought a ho-hum decision win against Jermaine Franklin, I believe it was. And now he says he's not going to fight again until December, I believe he said. But real quick, Anthony Joshua is not Anthony Joshua no more, man. He was a very confident fighter. He is a very insecure fighter now. And it looks like he is afraid to get punched.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can only say that because I've been punched by the best in the world, amateur and pro. So I'm going to say it because it does look like he's afraid to get punched. And I don't get it because you're in the heavyweight division. You had that massive outing against Vladimir Klitschko. And then now you don't look like you even want to be in the ring hardly. So
that might as well have been an eternity since then. Weekend Trav. We watched part of this fight back a couple weeks ago, and it just, I don't know. I mean, I get it.
It wasn't the same.
The local crowd's going to love him. All of his fights from now on have to be there, because if he comes over here, he ain't going to do it. It ain't going to do it. Unless he's fighting somebody big time on this side of the ocean. But I don't know, Weekend Trav. There was nothing there that screamed out, man, I can't wait to watch this guy fight again. There's nothing. Unless
he fights a Deontay Wilder or a Tyson Fury, I don't think anybody's going to really care.
Even the Tyson Fury matchup, it's just so lopsided that I
I
mean,
know. I think Tyson Fury knocks him out. I
yeah,
also think Deontay Wilder beats him as well
I think
because
so. I think that for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's entertaining fights. Even though we don't think that he's the same B Money, I do think those fights would be pretty fun and exciting to watch. And I think England would love to see Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua
oh,
still, even though it's
100%.
way past the prime. So I think they could sell out a place there. But I don't know that Anthony Joshua will probably want to agree to the terms, whatever Tyson Fury wants, because Tyson Fury will get to dictate those because he is the champ and he will beat Anthony
Well, I
Joshua.
mean,
So,
he's one of the title champs.
ooh, sick.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the most part, he dictated the terms of that potential contract too, which that fight obviously was put on the
Fell
shelf.
through.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
or that's just part of the marketing of it, and it will come because this is like we've mentioned, this is a pretty hot month and a half or so coming up. So they may have just shelved that heavyweight matchup because there's not a lot of airspace to talk about it, and they don't want to compete with the other guys and the marketing airspace. And speaking of, there is a fight coming up. I think is it in June or is it the end of May now? And that's one
Which,
Teofimo Lopez now taking on Josh
yeah.
Taylor. That was announced this past weekend. Holy moly. Is
What a
Teofimo
fight.
Lopez biting off more than he can chew here, weekend, Trav?
Dude, that fight is in June 10th, and Teofimo Lopez is coming off of a fight who everybody thinks that he probably lost. I think it was against a guy named Sandor. I forget the last name, Chris Sandor or something. But yeah, a lot of people watch that fight. He lost. We talked about it on air too. We talked
Yeah.
about it in one of our episodes, and he did. He did not look like the normal Teofimo Lopez. And now, instead of getting back on track and getting back to getting his confidence back, he's going right at Josh Taylor, who at one time was in the pound for pound talk. Josh Taylor was also undefeated. Josh Taylor also coming off a fight against Catterall, which I did a thing about, and I said that I thought he won. But a lot of people thought that could have been a draw, or he'd have lost his fight too. So maybe that's why Teofimo Lopez and them are comfortable in fighting this guy directly back, because Catterall are Josh Taylor really isn't coming off of a very, very confident fight with Catterall either. And that the rematch also fell through. So maybe that's why. But I'm telling you, our British friends that we talked to in person too, that actually used to train Josh Taylor, was the McGuigans. And they're like, this kid's really good. And I've watched him fight. He is really good. So if Teofimo can somehow beat this guy, I think it would be just as big as when Teofimo beat Lomachenko, because Teofimo was not supposed to beat Lomachenko. Lomachenko beating everybody up to that point, was a pound for pound best for sure, up there in top three. And then Teofimo beat him. Amazing. But then Teofimo falls flat on his face and loses, gets upset by George Kambosos, and then just has not really impressed anybody. So it sucks because that division is hot, because also last weekend, Shakir Stevenson also fought and moved up to 135 now. So Shakir Stevenson got like a 7th round knockout against a guy who's really good too. A tough Japanese guy, I believe it was. But that division now, it
It's
used
just
to
so
be
much
ran
going on weekend, Trav. I mean, that we got
so
we got
much.
Devin Haney, Lomachenko coming up in May as well. I mean, there's so much activity just with that weight class alone. Back to
And
Lopez and Taylor. I don't know, man. I mean, leading up to it, I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about it. I know styles make fights, right? I just don't think this is a good matchup for Teofimo Lopez, especially to try to bounce back and have a defining moment to just springboard him back into proper contention. I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one.
I agree with you. I really do, because Josh Taylor is a lefty, can box, knows how to fight. He's longer, he's rangier. I don't know if that's good for Lopez, but you know what? Also, though, let's put this out there, because props to Lopez, though. Props to these guys like Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia for making tough fights that the fans want to see. Boxing is winning right now with these type of fights, because these are big time fights. And we got to throw Devin Haney, who is the king of that division right now, 135, has all the titles, who's fighting Lomachenko now. So we have to give props to these guys, because although I wouldn't have normally probably advised them to take these fights are great for boxing. And we got 3 or 4 of them coming up now that are Josh Taylor, Lopez, Tank Garcia, Devin Haney, Lomo. Phenomenal fights. Boxing fans win.
It's funny because if you've been following our content for a while, and if you have, thank you so much for subscribing. If you have not yet done so, please subscribe below, depending on when you're watching or listening to this. We just appreciate that, and it helps us out a bit. But if you've been listening or watching for a long time, we've talked about this division for years, years, Weekend Trav, on all the things that could be doing. And then it's finally coming to fruition literally in the next 6 to 8 weeks. A lot of what we've talked about is coming true. Finally, after a couple of years of talking about the potential bracketology and all this stuff, it's happening. These guys are finally fighting one another, the bigger names in the mix, and we'll kind of see how this edges out by the end of the year or into next year. It's a very exciting time for this weight division.
Yeah, and you said you're right. We put it out there because when we went out there, it was January of 2021. Ryan Garcia, it was January 2nd of 2021. Ryan Garcia fought Luke Campbell. We were there live in Dallas, Texas, and watched that fight because we had a fighter on the card. But as soon as we watched that fight, we were like, oh my gosh, Ryan Garcia is a little better than we thought. He's a little tougher than we thought. But we came home, we did a podcast, and we were like, that division is exciting. We're like, 2021 is going to be off the chain for that division. And then guess what happened? Nothing for a couple of years. Now it did. You know what? Things take time. It was an investment into what's going on right now. Now it is all coming to fruition. It really is because big time fights are happening now.
Now is the time
in that division.
Weekend Trav, this is it. This is going to be a good couple of months here in boxing action, episode 118. Before we start to put a bow on it, wrap it up, anything else that you want to mention? Any sort of final comments or thoughts from you?
I got a couple. One, it's Virgil Ortiz is fighting April 29th on DAZN. Undefeated welterweight, doesn't get enough play. The guy's amazing. Also, May 6th is Canelo Alvarez on pay-per-view against John Ryder. I get it's not a blockbuster opponent, but it's coming up. May 13th, Showtime, Alberto Puello versus Rolly Romero, who got knocked out by Tank Davis, right?
Yeah.
So, but the guy's strong, whatever. Katie Taylor's fighting Chantel Cameron. We've talked about that on May 20th on DAZN. But also, I do have some final thoughts, and I don't know if I've said them before, but I was just searching through some of my notes in my phone, and I came across this thing, okay? The reason why I want to bring it up is because Easter weekend was this past weekend, right? You know, if you believe in God, our Lord and Savior, you know, he died for our sins on Friday, which is Good Friday. On Sunday, he arose, and this is where we're at today. This is a Monday when we're recording this, so drops on a Wednesday, but this is Monday. But I'm not Catholic. I am a Christian. But I got the privilege. I was in Vatican, the Vatican City in Rome. Vatican's its own city, though, its own country even. But anyway, I was there. I got to listen to the Pope. I believe it was in like 2016. Okay. And I'm not Catholic, but he said something that was so awesome. And it made sense to me in my everyday life. He said, there are 3 phrases in life that are not so easy to say or practice, but when they are ignored, they can cause cracks in the family foundation and cause cracks in the foundation of friendships. Okay. And those 3 simple phrases are, may I, thank you, and pardon me. And think about that. So you're just walking down the street and somebody bumps into you. If they don't say anything, it infuriates you, right? But if they say, pardon me, you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. No worries, man. You're good, right? Like, it's true though. And then thank you. Like, if somebody does something very good for you, you know, you don't say thank you. By not saying that, it causes a massive problem. So that simple phrase, thank you, pardon me, and also may I, if you're asking for something, you know, may I have this? If you say give this to me, it causes a massive problem with just some simple words.
You say that, then I say, pardon me.
Exactly. So I just thought it was kind of cool. You know, it's 3 phrases in life called may I, thank you, and pardon me. And I think it does affect my life, affect other people's life. And I think we'd see a lot more peace and a lot more Christian type behavior if all of us use those 3 simple phrases. If you ever get the chance to use those, please do.
Pardon me, Weekend Trav. What are you currently drinking? Are you drinking the Yellowstone handpicked single barrel that we ranked last time around at 6.75 boxing gloves out of 10?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
There we
Yellowstone.
go. Like that little formatting change, folks. So we have that. We got the Bourbon Lounge episode coming later this week, which will be a new bourbon, I think new bourbon, but that's what we'll drink on next week's podcast episode. That way we kind of get back on track where it's not confusing for everybody. My final thoughts are just this. We do appreciate all of you for the support. We appreciate our friends, you know, over at BioSteel. Thank you. And thank you so much to TH Boxing, IF Enterprises, and Gulfstream Financial for your media help as well. We appreciate that so much. And if you have yet to subscribe to our content on YouTube, on Rumble, if you're listening to us on whatever app source on your phone or on your computer that you use, we are there. Search for us, Weighing In with Travis Hartman. Follow us on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. We do appreciate you. Give us a little thumb up too on this video when you have a chance. That's my final thought, is all that plugging that I just did, Weekend Trav. That is what she said.
Yeah, you did great, producer.
Yeah. All right. Well, Weekend Trav, that's it for episode 118. And next week, we'll be back in studio in the TH Boxing Studio for the #1 Beards, Bourbon, and Boxing podcast shot in Orlando, Florida, specifically Laureate Park, specifically in a boxing gym on the second floor of said boxing gym in the TH Boxing podcast room, which he's in right now, and I'm not. Shot on a Sunday or Monday, today being Monday, dropping on
Wednesday morning at 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the world.
That is us. We do appreciate everything. That over there is Weekend Trav.
That there is B Money, aka producer, aka MegaCon King.
God bless.